the team gets to listen in on some of the things. Everybody's on the page. Okay.
All right. So what we had talked about, I don't know if my mouse is going. Yeah. I just changed the battery in my mouse, hoping it would fix it, but it's still glitchy. Anyways, in our last meeting, we talked about finishing off that marketing relationship funnel or relationship circle, the funnel kind of flow with that. So I've done that, and we can go through that as one of our kind of big discussion points today. I think it'll help clarify, make sure that we're on the same page and looking at, okay, well, what's the future of this funnel, and where do we want to spend our time? And then we can talk about your custom listing funnels as well, that mind map that you sent me. And then we had listed to talk about just the overall kind of branding strategy, if we have time to get into that today. Is there anything that like comes to mind or you wanted to start with in particular?
Would be great to just to maybe start off with a summary of last time. And remember you're saying you're going to clean up you're going to clean it up. So this, I think it'll start putting things in perspective, and we can start building up on it, because I think that's the base, right? That's the base.
Yeah, exactly. And a big portion of our first meeting there was gathering that initial information to put into this funnel, talking about, where is the awareness coming from for your organizations. Primarily, a lot of that right now is driven through ads, and as well as looking at, okay, well, what's happening on the different platforms that you're currently active on, what could be happening there. We just briefly discussed just the idea of having some sort of subscription incentive, and creating that kind of that like segment of relationship that they're more than just a social media follower, but they're not quite into your full relationship buying kind of cycle of things. And then just in terms of like the partnerships as well, and how that fits into the funnel. So why don't I share my screen? If I have permissions, I do. Always. I don't like how the Zoom windows shrink so tiny when you're sharing your screen. I've got like two screens here, and then like your face is like this tiny little thing up in the corner. It's all good. Okay, so you can see my screen, I assume.
Yeah.
So this is what it turned out to be, and I will send you a PDF version of this right after our meeting, depending on what we want to look at and change. And we'll zoom in and talk about these different aspects. But essentially what we did here was we looked at the acquaintances stage, the followers stage, subscribers, and then your advocates or customers. And those are those four main brackets that we want to talk about. And then over on the top here, this general section is talking about Samad Homes. This is about the partnership. This column here, rather, is about the partnership with for the podcast and your wealth creation. And then this is Mindshift as well. And you'll notice that there isn't too much in terms of integration on this side of things with all of this. The Samad Homes portion of things was complex enough, and I think we need to make sure we get that kind of solidified before we try and merge too much of this into one thing. So going into the Samad Homes side of things, I've broken this down into two segments essentially, which is home buyer and investor. Let me know if you ever want me to zoom in closer. Home buyer and investor. And part of the reason we want to do that is because when you get more complex in terms of evergreen content and reasons that people are going to want to follow you and see content on a regular basis, those two segments might have very different conversation points and needs and value that you can offer. So what we're looking at here is generally the acquaintance stage. So this is how do people become aware of you? And so if you look at the home buyer, we're looking at their primary modes of becoming aware of you are through your social media advertisements for specific listings, your listing signage that we talked about, the MLS and database listings for your properties, and then Google search as well if they're looking for real estate agents in the area. These,
what is
sorry,
it?
go ahead.
Outreach?
Sorry, direct outreach. Yeah. So this keeps going into two other areas, direct outreach and then branding and evergreen ads. So the reason that these are blue versus red, so the blue is stuff that we can talk about implementing. It's new programs. The red outline boxes are all things that are currently active. And so on a home buyer front, there's less opportunity for direct outreach to like literally go to somebody to do lead generation and research of who's planning on selling their home soon, versus the investor side of things, where you might actually be able to do some of that direct outreach where you're looking, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever it is, to actually find people who are frequent real estate investors, or that's a big portion of what they do. So there's a bit of a different opportunity there for the investor side of things, as well as this last one here, branding and evergreen ads. So
how
sorry, go
about
ahead.
we were looking for people in a specific community, for example, going into LinkedIn, Facebook groups, and going into a specific community, say Joshua Creek, and then trying to connect with people who live there. Or, for example, if we did a direct outreach on people, pregnant women, and people who want to buy a house because they're about to,
Mhm.
would these be also under direct outreach? Would these campaigns?
They could, yeah. I guess there is room for direct outreach in terms of the home buyer segment of things, but how specific you can get is not nearly as good as on the investor side of things. From my initial assumptions, I haven't obviously done the direct outreach for investors, but my assumption would be that there are a significant number of real estate investors who have that as part of their profile and as part of their activity online. And it's easier to find and follow and connect with those people, as opposed to a potential home buyer who is, that information, one-to-one direct outreach with people with that information is harder to find.
Okay.
That's my assumption, but yeah. So if you went and searched for people who are who are pregnant, I would assume that would be something you could do with more branding evergreen ads or with your direct social listing ads, right? If that type of demographic information, because it's more broad and it's not as easy to like pinpoint and outreach to.
Okay.
And then just, so I guess the differentiating factor here on the branding and evergreen ads is the fact that instead of spending dollars, as well as spending dollars on listings directly and saying Facebook ad towards this listing goes to this specific funnel, we could also create ads that are more general branded ads that say Samad Homes is this type of real estate company. We do this. It's more than just real estate. It's as well as, so there's the specific branded category of things, as well as the evergreen type of educational ad, right? Where you're teaching somebody something through that ad and then directing them towards some sort of lead generation tool where you're giving them extra, a download or video or something like that, that'll teach them something extra. So I think there's three buckets of ads that we can look at: specific listings, general branded ads, and then evergreen educational ads as well.
Yep.
Okay. So coming back to this side of things, primarily over here, these red boxes are what you currently have in place for your direct listing type of funnel. And so you've got your social media ads going towards your custom listing pages that you've created, or your signage, people will find your listing pages, which then funnels into your Kajabi follow-up system, which you've created very nicely. The other portion of this is they could come directly from MLS or other database listings and just become a direct lead. They're just going to reach out to you and say like, hey, I want to know this property. So those are the very basic, very direct channels and flow that people can follow. And so the ideal situation is, yes, they become an active participant in your kind of current clients, right? However, there's an opportunity here, which we discussed, of people that aren't quite ready to become active clients or real participants, but they still could be a potential home buyer later. They could be a home seller later. Like there's an opportunity there to build that relationship further. And so this is where we get into building this new funnel and new system of keeping those relationships without where they're not ready yet to be a client, but we want to keep them as part of our system and keep those relationships. So we'll come back up here because then we can go through this side of things. So what I've written down here and what I propose is going to be an effective strategy for you is to focus on video quite heavily. And I know you've been doing that to certain degrees in certain places, but what we want to do is create a really consistent core strategy here with video where we can create value on a regular basis and we can repurpose it and distribute it in different channels. And so this video strategy that we want to do could be distributed to YouTube, your LinkedIn personal profile, as well as Instagram and Facebook, and all of those assets can be in there. And I'm not saying you should only do this video strategy and not do your other posts on Instagram that you're currently doing. So there's a place for specific posts like that on places like Instagram. But what we want to do is outline a strategy of creating an educational video series, for example, on whether it's you're talking about specific markets and neighborhoods and activities within Toronto, or you're talking about specific educational pieces that will help a home seller, or you're talking about specific educational pieces that will help a home buyer or an investor or real estate investor, which might be slightly different. So anyways, there's a lot of different options of how you can define that video strategy, but having a consistent plan of what to create and when to create it will be really useful here. So throughout that, let's say we're creating this video series or a couple of different series, we want to be able to funnel those people towards some sort of incentive to subscribe, incentive to give you their contact information. And that could be done as two separate ones, one for the home buyer and one for the real estate investor, where we're giving them something like 10 secrets to help sell your home faster without reducing the price. And it's like a short 5-minute video or something like that they can subscribe to download. Similar, you could do that for your investor series, 10 secrets to real estate investing in Toronto. Obviously, these headlines are pretty generic, but you get the idea, right?
Often do you think there should be emails once a month or?
So far we've gone into videos. I think if you're talking about videos, I would suggest creating if you could do 2 high quality videos a month, and be able to repurpose those in 4-5 different channels. I think that's an effective strategy here. These incentives will be evergreen, so anyone can sign up for those whenever they want. A welcome automation, so we'll want at least one welcome automation email, but we could do multiples as part of that, like, hi, this is the thing you downloaded. Here's a little bit more about Smad Homes, and the next one can be, follow up to that. But in terms of this newsletter email strategy for e-magazines, so usually I like to refer to them as e-magazines to try to brand them as opposed to saying it's the Smad Homes newsletter, for example. The reason for that is it immediately ups the value, the perceived value of it. as opposed to I'm just getting updates from some ad homes. But if it's a series in an e-magazine where it's labeled like, you know, home buyer seller or Toronto home buyer magazine, I don't know, I'm lacking on the titles here, but if it's a specific branded type of email where it's about the value, then you'll get a lot better reception on it. And so these, I would suggest just starting with a monthly email. And I think that's a good place to start. You can see the reactions. You could try doing more emails, but once a month gives you also an opportunity to throw in other slightly more promotional emails in between, without pumping out too many emails to their inbox, right? Okay, so I went through a lot already here. So let's maybe just slow down. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Can you zoom out for a second?
So yeah, just to recap. So 2 main segments, although a lot of these are kind of shared awareness pieces, but your current programs go through your custom listing kind of flow, go to Kajabi, and they either become a current client or they don't. So how do we create something where we can actually start building an audience and a relationship with people, even if they're not ready to be a client yet? And so that's where we want to look to education, information, delivering value through a public way. I'm suggesting on video, through YouTube, through Facebook, and LinkedIn, and then getting them from those emails and that public facing content to your private facing content, which would be the subscription incentive to the monthly email side of things.
Got it. And those subscriptions would be sent out to the lifetime referral database as well as?
I would imagine so. Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to do 2 separate ones there. So this would probably come into the same bucket of things.
And you think that if I focus on 2 well shot, maybe longer videos and then repurpose them, cut them out and repurpose them, maybe make a couple of snippets from it. Some go to the public, some go to, so that the content's slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're talking about video strategy, I think there's a couple different ways to do it. And there's actually a significant number. I was doing a little bit of research of real estate agents on YouTube talking about Toronto. And I'm sure you've come across some of them. And there's videos that have, you know, they talk about specific neighborhoods, they talk about trends, they talk about predictions for the future in Toronto or whatever. And so I think that type of information is currently, people are searching for it currently, people are delivering it currently. And so if we can get you into that conversation and then find ways to be unique within that, once we've got a kind of flow of things, then you'll be able to stand out a bit more. But yeah, I found several real estate agents on YouTube talking about specifically Toronto or neighborhoods within Toronto. And there's some really good information and value in there.
Cool. I like the map. So this map doesn't necessarily take into consideration anything that is not digital. This is all digital, right? So communities and kind of the referral business and that kind of stuff. That's all.
That's correct.
That's all after, and it's all in the lifetime referral system. But this is more of a digital snapshot of what at a high level. What could we automate? How could you automate this stuff so that it is? How can we make this very simple? Because it's very nicely designed and not designed, very nicely laid out, and it's sequential, but it's a little hard to follow on a regular basis. Like if you were to take
for sure,
habits or daily behavior, how does that look?
So what I normally do with my full strategy packages when I'm doing that with clients is this is the first stage of looking at, okay, what's the map of things and what do we want to create? Then the next stage is, okay, well, let's start. I usually start with the newsletter, the e-magazine. And the reason that I do that is because you can use all of the pieces of that email magazine and repurpose them everywhere else in all of the different social channels and all your different communications. And so if you look at it from a perspective of I'm going to create, and we could do, one, we don't have to do both of these at the beginning, or we could try to find a way to combine them, but I'm not sure how to do that yet. So anyways, if you create a monthly email, and that's your task, and that monthly email contains 2 videos, it contains links to other resources, it contains an image and a quote and a short little paragraph about what's new with Samad Homes. All of that content is the same content that you're going to be creating and publishing throughout these channels. And that's a really nice, simple way to start. There's obviously more complex things you can do. We're talking about repurposing and having some clips for public and some clips for private or in your email list. But I think starting more simply is best. And so just think about it like, okay, well, every month I'm going to create this newsletter. Okay, what goes into it? 2 emails, 3 resources, a paragraph, a quote post. We can talk about other types of small assets that might be valuable in that newsletter. And then that's what you create on a monthly basis. And that goes into your marketing calendar of what gets published for the next month, right?
Right.
And then in terms of the top of the funnel here, this obviously we need to talk about a bit more specific strategy there, in terms of how direct outreach could look, and then what those ads could look like. Because those ads, I mean, that's an automated process, but it's also something that you want to obviously monitor and tweak and adjust as things go on. But if it's an evergreen ad, then it's not as demanding as doing your custom listing ads all the time, right? So those would come into the same funnel system, incentive, email list type of approach, right?
Sounds good. I give me a second to just kind of absorb all of this. I follow you on every one. Let me just see if I can come up with a few clarifying questions. Can you zoom out a little bit more?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. The arrow pointing down from Google searches to YouTube, is that basically, do you want it to go to YouTube or do you want it to go to all 4? Are you funneling everything into YouTube and then from YouTube onwards, or is this just basically saying it goes to social media?
Yeah. So this is, the Google search item here is not all encompassing. Obviously from Google search, they can go directly to your website. They can find you in a bunch of different places from Google search. But the benefit to doing the video strategy and having those videos on YouTube is YouTube is obviously the same thing as Google, and they will show those YouTube search results in Google as people search. So there's a benefit as opposed to talking about just a video strategy on LinkedIn and Facebook. Those videos don't get cataloged in Google and come up in Google search results the same way YouTube does. So that's, I specifically highlighted that with this arrow, but there's several ways that people can consume that video content, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on your LinkedIn profile or Facebook or whatever it is. But that being that kind of like core spot where we're going to focus on creating this valuable content here, and we'll distribute it so people can find it.
How about each one of these 4 channels that you have there, the social media channels? These could also draw from the acquaintances or the awareness section from the outside. Are there strategies to do so, or would that be a completely different consideration altogether? If I want to grow my tribe in Facebook from 2,000 to 4,000, for example, same with Instagram, would that, because that's dipping into awareness, that's dipping into the outside. How do you see that happening?
Yeah. So YouTube, obviously, we can funnel people in through there through search and through sending people to the videos. LinkedIn allows you to do that direct outreach, so that's what that specific arrow is for, and that is usually one of the best strategies, is actually just reaching out to people and saying hi. I'm trying to connect with them on LinkedIn. In terms of Facebook and Instagram, obviously making sure that you're using proper hashtags on Instagram and creating opportunities for people to have conversation. Because I think if you are not instigating, that's a bad word, but inspiring conversation and comments through what you're doing, it helps the algorithms push it to more people. But in terms of Instagram and Facebook, a big portion of what I think is going to be most effective for you is driving ads towards your more valuable content, as opposed to driving ads to grow your Facebook page, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because one of the downsides to doing that, like if you're spending money and time to grow your Facebook following, and then you make a post on Facebook and only 3% of people see it, that's pretty tragic, right? So, but if you spend your time on Facebook to advertise for your more valuable content and get them onto your email list, now you have a direct channel to them, right?
They will likely follow you, and they'll also engage with you more.
Yeah. So we'll look at, distributing and creating content for Facebook in terms of an organic perspective, and giving people an opportunity, whether they're on your email list or whatever, occasional opportunities and calls to action to follow you on Facebook, or if they're not. But I would suggest if you're going to spend any ad dollars on Facebook, it should be towards more action-oriented, valuable content. If that makes sense.
Makes full sense. The diagram that you drew is completely clear. One small distinction that I'd like you to make.
Yeah.
Is the branding evergreen ads and the Google searches. So what would the Google searches have? Would that be people searching Samad Homes?
So yes, so part of the reason that this is laid out the way it is because it's usually designed for a fairly strict conversation on content and digital media strategy. Google and SEO and websites is a slightly different but connected conversation. And typically in this funnel map, I'm not showing like every single path of Google search to website to seeing the video and whatever. So Google search allows you to come up for your YouTube videos. It allows them to search for Samad Homes. It allows them to search for Toronto real estate or a specific neighborhood, or so there's a lot of different ways that Google is involved in this. And I could put, something in here that says website kind of in this bracket, so we can understand, Google search, okay, people come straight to the website from Google, as well as finding your content through Google.
Okay. And the branding evergreen, where does this generally direct people to?
So right now I have it pointing over here to investor, the incentive. So I could, let's subscription incentive. Make these a little more clear.
So, but where do they get the subscription? Do they get it on, do they sign up for the subscription on the website, or is it stated?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, so exactly. So the evergreen ads and the content, the educational ads would say
maybe landing pages within the website.
Exactly. So it would be some sort of value that you can deliver within the first 10 seconds and say like, hey, Toronto, or this neighborhood in Toronto is expanding like this. It's crazy. If you want to learn 10 more tips on looking at this market, head over to my website and I've got another video there you can watch. So then they can go to a landing page, put in their email address, and then get that next video or next piece of that incentive. So this arrow goes straight to investor subscription incentive, but it could go to this home buyer one just the same.
Could be either. Both sides, the other one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's clear for me. So when you say Google Ads, is that these are, or Google search, this is not Google Ads, I'm assuming.
This is not Google Ads. No, this is just
is
organic. Yeah.
Organic. So organic Google searches, basically seeking out some odd homes or real estate services,
Yeah.
the website, and then the other ones are taking them to specific landing pages that would be more specific to what the. Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, that Google search there, they can come in through a couple of different avenues. Are you doing any Google AdWords at the moment?
Just Facebook, social media.
Yeah. Google AdWords, I've had a love-hate relationship with it. It's become very difficult to succeed at, and it takes a lot of money because, at the beginning and not a lot of people were on it. It only cost you, 10 cents for a click. And then you're on Google, 10 cents. The next realtor comes onto Google and they're paying 15 cents. And then now you're at the bottom of the list. Now you've got to pay 20 cents and 30 cents. And now it's $1 a click, or sometimes $6 a click to show up on Google, right? And it's become a very difficult game to win.
Unless you're really niching out, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And you got to spend a lot of time to watch it closely. Otherwise, you just kind of burn through money.
Okay, so this is clear. This is super clear. Are you going to send this to me?
Yeah, so I'll export this as a PDF. Just to briefly touch on like a couple other pieces of this. So custom landing pages, what I also want to think about is not just this funnel strategy here of like, okay, video, incentive, email list, but how do we show this to your current system, right? So your current system is ads, custom listing pages, Kajabi funnel. Is there an opportunity within that current system that people are flowing through to show them videos, to show them an incentive, right? And so if they're on this custom listing page and they don't fill out a form to say like, hey, I'm interested in this property, maybe we can show them that incentive that's some sort of real estate value, and they might fill that out instead, right?
Yeah. So the custom listing pages will have a drip campaign that maybe extends to a couple of weeks, after which it becomes irrelevant, right? After a couple of weeks, the property will probably be sold anyway.
Sure.
So, yeah. And then afterwards, we would need to do the drip campaign. We'll either migrate them to another value item, which is going through that second list.
Yeah.
Or the lead terminates because it's not responsive. So
sure. But so there's just one step before that, because you're talking about they're on the custom listing page, they filled out a form already, right?
Yeah.
So what if they actually don't like that house? What if they don't even care?
Yeah.
But if you show them something that says like, oh, if you want to see, more about this area in or investing in this area or whatever it is.
I'll show you the drip.
So it's like a secondary call to action in case they don't fill out that original form and become part of that drip.
Yeah.
Is there another thing we can offer them to say like, before you leave, like there's this video, I could help you out regardless of what house you want to buy now or in 6 months from now.
Yeah. I want you to critique what we are already working on, because I think we can definitely improve.
Sure.
There are a couple of things that I'd like to get your opinion on, above and beyond what we already decided we're going to talk about. This is super clear. I love it. And I can't wait for the team to see it as well. We'll fix the other two as we go. But I think this is awesome. Is there anything on the other sides, like the circle one, or is it the same thing?
In terms of this thing?
Yeah.
That's the just a default that I have here as part of the template. So this is the one that's created for you.
Yeah.
The only thing we didn't talk about was the Money Gap podcast and the partnership. And I just imagined that there's an opportunity. I think we need to have a little bit more of a discussion of what's the core audience for Money Gap.
Yeah.
And where that could fit into your funnel system. But I think the biggest most obvious answer is that from the podcast, give them a call to action for one of those download incentives, right? To become part of that system. If there's a relevant audience there and your partners are obviously okay with,
Yeah.
each person having their own call to action of sorts.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, the repurposing of the content in the Money Gap is great, right? So a lot of this can move
yeah,
to the email sequence because there's
for
really
sure.
good content there.
Yeah.
And in the Money Gap side, you got, what do you have? Money Gap podcast.
So there's a podcast and then there's the webinar version. And I put the webinar version here on the same line as this subscription incentive because obviously they have to subscribe. They have to give you their contact information to be on that webinar. And I drew an arrow straight to the magazine, like the newsletter level of things. But I don't know if that's really an okay strategy, given that you have two other partners on that webinar, whether or not you can just put them onto your email list, because that doesn't,
That should be fine. So, and then the mind shift, I
and
think there's a lot
then
of,
so then the mind shift side of things, largely similar to the podcast, where I imagine from these talks and webinars, if you're providing something that is real estate focused or investment focused, there might be an opportunity to offer that call to action for one of these subscription incentives. But I would
be wary
yeah
of putting too much of a mixing between the two. Is that what you're going to say?
Well, I'm wary about giving too many calls to action, because if somebody's on a talk here or a webinar, what's your main call to action? If they're on Mindshift, you want to sell them on Mindshift, right? So getting them to a call to action that comes over into this funnel is a distraction from their normal thought pattern, right? Where they're on a Mindshift webinar, signing up for a Mindshift course makes the next logical sense. So anyways, there could be a conflict there of just too many calls to action, but
I think the mind shift side will be, there's a very diverse, level of topics. There's topics, right? So I wouldn't be drawing from the mind shift audience, except when we have financial or real estate related talks.
Right.
So we will infuse maybe one every month that is real estate related, and that's the one that we usually draw from to that stuff. But all the other activity will be primarily Mindshift. So we will instead try to pull people from the audience to the talker, the speakers call to action. So and then the main goal is to get them to buy a Mindshift course. That would be the ultimate goal.
Right. So there's an opportunity here, I guess you were talking about, from this audience, from your Samad Homes audience, if they're into that magazine and that funnel, you could send them towards the Mindshift events. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it would be more to the webinars than anything.
Right.
Actually, yeah, my webinar or the talk, whatever is real estate related, if it's
sure. We'll just put this in here for now. And then I imagine you'll want some sort of email list follow-up system for all of these new subscribers from Mindshift, but that's an entire conversation of what's the funnel there. That needs to be figured out later.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so that's the majority of it. And I did take a look at the funnel that you showed me, that PDF. Let me just save this before your listing and advertising funnel. Is that the one you wanted to dive into right now?
I wanted to dive into we can dive into the listing funnel. I have a question specific about one of our, like a specific listing funnel for us.
Okay.
And I want to see if you have any solutions for it. About the Facebook has come up with a rule that for any real estate related ads, you can no longer target. You can no longer target by.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that last time. Yeah.
And so we have a few listings, properties that are considered to be exclusive, where we could sell them exclusively. And actually, exclusive campaigns are very powerful because it's information that is not available to the public.
Mhm.
So you have a solid reason why they want to engage, right? Because there's no other source of getting that information. So you got the listing campaigns, the specific listing campaigns that we're working on, the custom pages, but we also have exclusive campaigns, right? We have exclusive listings and we have public listings.
Mm.
So I want to touch on the exclusive ones. And what I was thinking of doing, and I want to get your opinion on this, is if I had, can I share screen?
Yeah, go for it.
If I had something like these are our exclusive listings, for example, I'll show that to you. You see these over here?
I can't see anything yet.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
See these?
Yeah.
These are all exclusive listings. A lot of them are going to be public at one point. Right?
Okay.
So if I had something like this, let's say I have a listing here in Oakville,
Mm-hmm.
and I took the ad was a picture, a snap of the area that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, I had my exclusive listing, let's say this one,
Mm-hmm.
as well as, let's say, a few others that other agents have, because I have access to some of the exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
And I created a picture of like a thumbnail with, let's say, multiple circles like this with price points on it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, that would be the ad. Maybe it would be a carousel ad, for example. One picture would be this. The second picture could be a couple of floor plans for brand new properties, and maybe a picture of a property that's being built. Kind of that's gives you the idea of, and then we are talking about an easier way or how to avoid competing for the property, the dream property, right? If that was the ad, how to avoid competing for your dream property. So, and then instead of talking about actually a listing, I was to talk about how can you buy through assignments and how can you get access to assignment lists.
Mm.
And then I can target that to that specific area, not focusing on the listing per se, but focusing on how to buy an assignment property
Yeah.
and how to get access to a list. Would you think that that is a good approach, and what can you add to it if we created a whole funnel of something like that?
Yeah. That
Because that no longer falls under real estate. You're not marketing a real estate property. You're marketing a way of a type.
way of analyzing data and the market, and yeah, it's not a specific listing. I don't know if they would get to a point of scrutinizing, is this an active listing that you're showing on the image or not, and whether that could be a problem. You just might want to be careful with what's physically on that image and whether it looks like a listing or not. There might be a way to show it where you can say like all the bubbles of private listings, and be able to say like these homes are for sale that you won't be able to find online. Yeah. Let me show you 3 ways of finding out how to see homes before they go into the public market, something like that, right? But if you talk about it like there is a mass amount of opportunity here that I can bring you towards, I can show you information of how to find, and you're not going to be able to get this by doing Google searches, something like that, right?
Something along those lines, yeah.
So I think that's a great idea. I think that's a very nice blend of targeting with intention, but not falling under those limitations. What I want to try and encourage, if I can, is creating, we're talking about evergreen. So how evergreen are these ads and listings? Because part of what we want to try and build is an ad system and a funnel system that we don't have to constantly create new stuff for. So versus your custom listing pages where it's a new funnel every time, and it's a new ad series every time, and it's a new 14 images every time. And there's a lot of assets to create in that every single listing. So as long as the strategy here is a little bit more general and you don't have to update it every time there's a new listing or every time there's a new piece of information, I think that it's a great strategy.
I think we can do that. I think the actual the system will be the same. The only difference will be the ad,
Yeah.
the picture that goes in, and the statement. So one of them being more like a specific, the content of the picture will be that specific to the area that I'm targeting. And
Yeah.
the language or the caption would include the name of the area.
Mhm.
But it would be the exact same system. Like people will just sign up for this list, and we can tag, this one came from Oakville North, this one came from this. And so I'd be able to see, okay, well, how many people did I get from Oakville? Okay, and now I can eventually, when they go through the call to action and they either set up an appointment to talk or set up whatever it is,
Yeah.
any call to action, then I can send them a list. I can say, hey, here's the list, and market the property that I originally have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Follow up with the actual property you have. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it'll be a way to pull a lot of buyer leads, seller leads. I think it'll just be a great way to pull together leads from, and I don't think it's being done. So if I want to,
I've not seen anything like that. I think it's pretty unique. And building out that funnel it's exactly what we just talked about, right? Is creating that buyer subscription incentive. This is that. So your ad is based on this premise of hidden opportunity.
Yeah.
I can give you access to it. Let me show you how. Now your subscription incentive, they sign up for it with their information, and you deliver. What's the best way to deliver this? Would a video, I guess, once they subscribe, a video introduction explaining it, plus how do you plan on exactly giving them access to these listings? Is it just through direct conversation, or
I can send them I can create a list, kind of like what I have here. I can just, did I not stop sharing it? So kind of like what I have here, I can have, if I put all the listings in this area, it all show up here, kind of looks like the listing service, and I can actually provide them access with limited information. So they can go here. Let's say there was a list for Oakville, and then I can limit what information they see. They can inquire about that listing. They can click a button, right? And they can inquire about the listing on here. And then I can provide them that listing, or maybe talk to them about that listing.
So
Gives the square footage, gives any information that I need.
There's a lot of value in this, but I wonder if this is something that that the average, home buyer to get onto this platform, learn how it works, learn how to search through it and understand what the columns mean. Like there's a lot in there to do versus
PDF. Could be as simple as a PDF.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it could be a PDF, right? That part might not be automated though, right? Would that be after a one-to-one follow-up?
That would be after a one-to-one follow-up.
Yeah.
Or it could be communicated verbally. Like, yeah, I actually have something similar to what you're looking for. Or maybe I don't, but I have something similar. I have something that's a little bit bigger. Let's go and take a look, right? Or maybe can we sit down and do a Zoom meeting? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering, like, some people might come into it for different reasons. And if you funnel it in a way where you get to have that one-to-one interaction, so you can not only prove Samad Homes value, but understand, like, okay, well, what information should I send you? Are you actually interested in this area, or are you interested in like 5 areas within this town? And yeah, so then you can get more specific. So I would suggest, before sending them specific listing information, is try to get them into some sort of phone call, a conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Can we work towards building something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did I not send you the access to our softwares? I didn't yet, right? It's Kajabi and
no.
Okay, I can send that to you after the call is done. I'm gonna make a note of it to send you the stuff.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I think we can focus here because here's the thing. Listings are very scarce these days, and people would list
Mm,
things, right? The people who are so if we can have a way to and there's a lot of buyers that are roaming around looking for opportunities, and this could be a very good way to avoid going through the multiple offer battles. There's an opportunity happening now, so I
mm,
think if we can localize some time towards this, we can put it as a priority over other things.
okay.
Uh, the other question that I have for you, and actually they're both connected, so we'd probably be building this funnel through Kajabi. And I think you said you've used Kajabi before, right? This is a email sequence. This is an email newsletter or magazine, if you may. This is an email. We're doing an event on the 16th of February, and something like this is what would can go out on a regular basis. Can you critique
Mm.
this? What are your thoughts on it?
So scroll up to the top. My initial thought is this something that I've seen before? Am I expecting it? And how we get to that is, where did they sign up? What did they sign up for? And have they seen this email before? And does this email look like something they've seen from you before? So part of what I think is missing is a bit of branding up at the top and consistency. So if you are going to be sending emails to people on a regular basis, having similar formatting, as opposed to having your advertisement be the entire top portion. I think that's a difficult piece, because every time they look at an email from you, it might have a different entire top header and it'll look drastically different
So
versus,
conformity, you're saying?
yeah. So if you had a header that was pretty standard, even it doesn't even have to be fancy, but if it's a header that's pretty standard with your logo or some kind of introduction or a button somewhere here there, as opposed to making that entire top piece new every time. Because if you're sending an ad, you're sending a listing, you're sending whatever it is, that entire email is going to look drastically different. So just as
So something like this is what you're saying.
I can kind of see from the little thumbnail, yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's just like something, so they immediately open it up, they're like, oh, I know who this is.
Yeah.
As opposed to like having to look through the image and find the logo and find where it's from.
Okay.
Um,
yeah.
Other than that, that's just this here. Yeah, I mean, this is a very specific email, right? Like it's for a specific purpose. You want them to sign up for that event.
Yep.
There's a complete opposite direction that could be taken from this, where you just do a plain text email, right? Which can work sometimes better in promotional situations, because it looks like it comes from a person sending an email that says like, hey, you know what, I know you were looking at this house a while back or whatever it was. We're actually having this little event. I think it'll help you with this, this, and this. It's on this date. Sign up here. And just plain text. So for something like this, where it's a very promotional based, like one call to action, very obvious, sometimes the text version can be effective.
This is to the lifetime referral system to invite them for an appreciation event. This is kind of, so if we were talking about, so this is one type of email that can go out. It's kind of like, this is the people that know me very well. They're part of
Right.
they're part of my advocates, and
Yep.
I'm sending them something like this. Something branded, something that brings out professionalism. This could also be used, this could also be used for as a magazine. You said a magazine, so magazine should be the same look every month, like you said. If there was a specific header,
there should be a piece of it that's the same every time, so it's very obvious.
Cool. And then there are emails like this that go out, email campaigns here. Let's say this one, for example. And we have
Like a new listing campaign.
text, right?
Yeah.
So this is an email campaign to people that come from a new listing, yes. And then this is a second one.
Oh, it's like an automated response to their request.
So
Okay.
as soon as they come in,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
start getting these campaigns, day 1, day 2, day 4, day 5, day 8.
Right. Yeah. Okay. This is your follow-up. Yeah. System.
That's my drip campaign, right?
Yeah.
And these are the open ratios, right?
Yeah.
So that is one that goes through. This is the drip. So this is the section that you drew out, and then from here, some of these are going to connect people to the newsletter, to the magazine that you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Which we're seeing is consistent, but is also the source of all content, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a certain point, I'm not like, I haven't read any of these emails or anything like that, but we can look at the content and the copy that's in them if you want later, and see like at what point are you asking for more information, asking for a call, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is great. I think with a few tweaks of how you're doing it, and then connecting some of the pieces together will be, yeah, a good headway.
You think that for a tribe, sending them something like this, is it better if you do it just by text, or is it better for it to be a nice kind of aesthetic, kind of like overly? What do you think? Like for the purpose that it's serving?
Yeah.
What do you-
I like having magazines that are styled and look aesthetically nice. If you had this as a feature section in your monthly magazine, then your direct call to action could be a text-based email. And so now you've got 2. So that could be an opportunity, right?
I didn't understand. What do you mean a text?
So you sent this as a direct email, and the only purpose of this is to tell them about this event.
Yeah.
So what if we told them about this event through your monthly email newsletter, and your direct call to action instead of this one was a text-based email that sounded like it came from you sitting at your keyboard, right? Like, hey, it's been a while. Hope you had a good weekend. Just wanted to make sure you got this like direct invite to our appreciation event. Would love to have you there. Love to see you.
Please
here's a link, kind of thing, right?
RSVP to the Eventbrite section.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think that-
Yeah. So sorry, we're a couple minutes after 12 here. I do have to run in a minute. Let's I guess concretize some of these next action points. Concretize, is that a word? I doubt it.
It makes me feel like that. I think my action point is to provide you with access to the Kajabi. I'll do that right after, and I would like us to focus on the campaign that I talked about, building up something like that. So I don't know what would be like what would
so
you
can you work on maybe an outline of a couple bullet points of what that initial value video would be, like the subscription incentive there? We don't have to fully create it, but just like a couple of bullet points to outline, like, I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can get access to blah, 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 blah. We can work around messaging. We can work around images and video and how that's going to actually work out. But I think that will be helpful.
Okay, I can create a mind map, kind of like with kind of a sketch of what would be. What would be the outcome for that? What can we get done before the next week's call?
Yes. So let me write down a list of essentially to-dos. It'll take a little bit because we need to think about like, okay, well, creating the graphic, creating the targeting, creating the subscription incentive, creating a landing page, creating a welcome email afterwards. So there's a bunch of different steps in here. Let me line out that flow of what we need to, all the assets and things we need to create for that specific funnel. I'll send you an email based on that. And then We can look at what pieces. I'll probably make some recommendations on each one of what I might need you to do or your team versus me. And then we can talk about like who can do what. Does that make sense?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Yeah.
I
think
think
that's
that
it.
let's keep our focus very, very, very precise for next time.
Yeah.
And you wanted, and I mean, the listing funnels and that kind of stuff, we can revisit after that.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe just one thing to kind of put in your head, and I think I've alluded to this already, is the balance between branded, evergreen, all-encompassing type of advertisements versus listing-based advertisements, which are very time-consuming. And so the reason that I want to put that out there, and I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't know, and I don't know your history from some of these ads and things, but if you're already selling a home in 2 to 3 weeks or whatever it is, and things are selling easily, maybe advertising the listing isn't your best investment. Maybe advertising your brand and advertising for future listings, future sellers, is going to get you more listings that will sell quickly. So not sure if you're I'm getting this across clearly enough, but yeah, just think about a little bit, I guess, are the advertisements that you're specifically doing and how much money you're spending in creating assets, not just the ad cost, but in creating all of the funnel and system. How much does that increase the amount of money you make from the sale versus could you spend that time and money on finding new property listings and things to sell and clients, right? So I think that it might be an important exercise just to think about that. And it's not something I can give you the answer to, and we can discuss it more, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll think about that. And I guess maybe it's either hardwired or like, maybe it makes sense, but when you show someone how you can present their property, you're also winning the hearts of the people who want to sell. They're like, I want to get one of these, right? I want to get a website like this. Look how interactive you can do this in the listing campaigns. So it's actually one of the things that I typically, when I meet a seller for the first time and say, who's doing this for you? Right? So it makes it easier for me to get that document signed and say, sell my property.
For sure.
And opens the way for other sellers. But if there is a mechanism that is cheaper, then maybe it makes sense, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Or a way to trim it down where it saves a bit of your cost and time, but it's still enough to provide that extra bump of value for your client. Yeah. Anyways, things to think about, right?
Yeah, we'll explore that as we go. Sounds good, Joel. So I'll wait for your email. Thank you so much. And thank you for the extra time as well.
For sure.
I'll wait to see what I should do and what you should do, and we can focus on the exclusive side. Maybe we can run a few of these after.
Yeah. So just, I guess the first thing for you is just kind of brief outline of like what that value piece is that you want to deliver through this campaign.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. It was fun connecting again, and
always.
We got a lot to tackle here and cover, and I'm excited for where we're going. I think your insight here to go down this very specific path, I think, is really good. So yeah, good stuff.
I'm looking forward to receive that chart that you drew. I can't wait to show it to the team.
Oh yeah.
Get them to watch.
Let me write that down. Make sure I don't forget. Send PDF. Cool.
Get them to watch the video as well. We got two people who are focusing on marketing in the team. So
perfect.
You'll get to meet them one day. All right, buddy. Enjoy.
Cool. Have a good rest of your week. Have a good weekend.
You too. You too,
Talk
Joe.
soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.